The topic for today is Crates of Malice was a Greek grammarian and Stoic philosopher who lived in the 2nd century BC. He was the leader of the literary school and head of the library of Pergamum. He was also a friend of the Roman philosopher Cicero. So let's get started. Let's begin with what little we know about his life. Crates was born in Malice in Asia Minor, which is modern-day Turkey, around 100 BCE. His father was named Crates, which was also the name of the city's tyrant at that time. There seems to be some confusion whether Crates the philosopher was related to this tyrant or not, but most scholars think they were not related. When Crates was 19 years old, he went to Athens to study philosophy. There he became a student of Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism. After studying in Athens, Crates stayed in Greece for the rest of his life. In addition to being a philosopher, Crates was also a prolific writer. It's believed that he wrote over 700 books on a variety of topics, including grammar, rhetoric, poetry, and philosophy. However, unfortunately, none of his works have survived to the present day. One of the most important things about Crates' life is that he was the head of the library of Pergamum. The library was one of the largest and most important libraries in the ancient world, and it was here that Crates spent much of his time. As head of the library, Crates had access to a huge number of books and scrolls, and he used this access to write many of his own works. He was also responsible for organizing and cataloging the library's collection, and he developed a system for doing so that was used in other libraries throughout the ancient world. Another important thing about Crates' life is that he was a friend of the Roman philosopher Cicero. Cicero was one of the greatest Roman philosophers and orators, and he was a close friend of Crates. They met when Cicero was in Athens studying rhetoric, and they remained friends throughout their lives. Cicero often mentioned Crates in his letters, and he once said that he considered Crates to be one of the 4 most intelligent men in the world. The other 3, according to Cicero, were the philosopher Philo, the astronomer Aristarchus, and the poet Homer. This is high praise indeed, coming from such an esteemed source as Cicero. It's not known exactly how Crates died, but it's believed that he died in Athens in the early 1st century BC. He was probably in his late 80s or early 90s when he died. Now let's talk about his philosophy. Crates was a Stoic philosopher, and he was one of the most important Stoics of his time. Stoicism was a popular school of philosophy in the Hellenistic and Roman periods, and its main emphasis was on living in accordance with nature. The Stoics believed that the key to happiness was to live a virtuous life in accordance with the rational order of the universe. Crates taught these ideas to a number of famous students, including the Roman philosopher Cicero. As a Stoic, Crates believed that emotions like anger and fear were harmful and should be avoided. He also believed that people should not be concerned with things that are outside of their control. Instead, they should focus on what they can control, namely their own thoughts and actions. By living in accordance with these principles, the Stoics believed that people could achieve a state of tranquility called apatheia. Apatheia is often translated as tranquility or serenity, but it doesn't mean a lack of emotions. Rather, it means a state of freedom from the passions, especially uncontrolled or negative emotions such as anger, fear, and desire. The Stoics believed that apathy was the ultimate goal of philosophy because it was the key to living a happy and fulfilling life. In addition to his philosophical teachings, Crates was also an influential grammarian. He was one of the first people to develop a scientific approach to grammar, and he made significant contributions to the study of language. Crates' work in this area had a major impact on the development of Latin grammar, and he is considered to be one of the most important figures in the history of linguistics. Crates was also a pioneer in the field of lexicography, that is the study and compilation of dictionaries. He is credited with compiling one of the earliest Greek dictionaries, and his work in this area helped to preserve many ancient Greek words and phrases that might otherwise have been lost to us. Now let's discuss his relationship with Cicero. Cicero was one of the most important figures in Roman philosophy, and he was greatly influenced by Crates. In fact, Cicero's philosophical ideas are so similar to Crates that it's clear that Cicero was heavily influenced by his teacher. For example, both Crates and Cicero believed that the key to happiness was to live a virtuous life in accordance with nature. They also both believed that emotions like anger and fear were harmful and should be avoided. Cicero was so grateful to Crate for his influence that he named his own daughter after him. Unfortunately, there is very little evidence of Crate's influence on Cicero beyond the fact that he named his daughter after him. However, it's clear from Cicero's writings that he was deeply influenced by his teacher. There is also some evidence that Crate may have visited Rome and lectured there on philosophy. This would have given Cicero and the other Roman philosophers a chance to hear him lecture and learn from him directly. Cicero, as I said before, was one of the greatest Roman philosophers and orators, and he was greatly influenced by Crates. He was born in 106 BCE and died in 43 BC. He was a statesman as well as a philosopher and was one of the most important figures in the Roman Republic. Cicero's philosophical ideas are largely based on those of his teacher, Crates. Cicero was a Stoic philosopher, and Crates was one of the most important Stoics of his time. In fact, Cicero's philosophical ideas are so similar to Crates that it's clear that Cicero was heavily influenced by his teacher. For example, both Crates and Cicero believed that the key to happiness was to live a virtuous life in accordance with nature. They also both believed that emotions like anger and fear were harmful and should be avoided. Cicero was so grateful to Crate for his influence that he named his own daughter after him. Unfortunately, there is very little evidence of Crate's influence on Cicero beyond the fact that he named his daughter after him. However, it's clear from Cicero's writings that he was deeply influenced by his teacher. There is also some evidence that Crate may have visited Rome and lectured there on philosophy. This would have given Cicero and the other Roman philosophers a chance to hear him lecture and learn from him directly. If you've been following along, you may have noticed that we've talked about a lot of important people in this video, including Zeno, Cicero, Malus, and Pergamum. Let me give you a quick refresher on these people and places in case you need it. Zeno of Citium was the founder of Stoicism. He was born in Citium in Cyprus in the early 3rd century BC and died in Athens in the early 2nd century BC. He was a merchant by trade, but after his ship was lost at sea, he turned to philosophy. Zeno's philosophy was heavily influenced by the Cynics, and he founded his own school of philosophy, Stoicism, in Athens in the mid-3rd century BC. Zeno's teachings were very popular, and Stoicism quickly became one of the most popular schools of philosophy in the ancient world. Cicero was a Roman philosopher and statesman. He was born in Arpinum in Italy in 106 BCE and died in 43 BC. Cicero was one of the greatest Roman philosophers and orators, and he was greatly influenced by Crates of Malus. Malus was a city in ancient Greece. It was located in the region of Caria in the southern Aegean Sea. Malus was a major center of trade and culture in the ancient world, and it was home to a number of important people, including the philosopher and Stoic Craterus. Pergamum was an ancient city in Asia Minor. It was located near the modern Turkish city of Berlin, and it was one of the most important cities in the Hellenistic world. Pergamum was the capital of the Attalid dynasty, and it was home to one of the largest and most important libraries in the ancient world. The library was founded by King Attalus I in the early 2nd century BC, and it was one of the largest collections of books and scrolls in the ancient world. So there you have it, a brief overview of Crates of Malus, the Greek grammarian and Stoic philosopher who lived in the 2nd century BC. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching.